Alright, so, welcome guys to an analysis video. We're going to be trying to shoot the most perfect ILS that we possibly can. The most perfect instrument landing possible. Now, we've got a full G1000 here, so if we're training on a 6-pack or something like that, it might not be exactly the same way that it looks on here, but the same principle applies. We've got our TIM SSS ABC. That's how we shoot every instrument approach. How I do, at least. People have different methods. This is the best method that I've found and the best method that I like. So, what is TIM SSS ABC? Well, it's tune, identify, marker beacon, set altimeter, set heading bug, set compass,
I'll have that for you.
then altitude brief, build it into your GPS, and then your
5
checklist.
miles, extends to the north, scattered for about
So,
75 miles.
we're going to start with tune frequencies first. Well, we're going to pull up the approach plate that we're going to do here. We're going to be doing the ILS runway 20 into Bloomington today. Bloomington, Illinois, BMI, KBMI. So, first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get our ATIS in the backup frequency. So we'll get 119.575 here. Switch that over. And then I always put ground in second. While we're here, I might as well just put the ground in standby, 121.65. And I know my next frequency is going to be St. Louis approach on 128.72, just because it's on my chart, and I've flown this multiple times before, so we've got everything set up that we need here. You can see we're receiving our AWAS, so our ATIS. Let's listen to it.
Niner ILS outer marker unserviceable. Runway 20 ILS inner marker and outer marker unserviceable. Advise on initial contact with information, Zulu.
Exit 675, deviation right of course is approved, and I'll have that routing for you in 1 minute.
Bloomington information, Zulu 1156 Zulu, wind 190 at Niner, visibility 10. Stack conditions ceiling 6,500 broken. Temperature 16, 2.13, altimeter 2988. Expected visual approach, runway 20. Note opens runway 29 ILS outer marker unserviceable. Runway 20 ILS inner marker and outer marker unserviceable. Advise on initial contact with information, Zulu.
Alright, we've got information Zulu. We've done our first tune here. And they say we're going to get the visual for runway 20, but I want to shoot the ILS, so I'm going to request that with them here in a minute. First thing I need to do is tune my ILS frequency. I can see right on my chart here, 111.55. So I'm going to go to my nav frequencies, 111.55. I'm going to set that both in my nav 1 and my nav 2 and activate them and put them in that frequency. Next thing we're going to have to do is identify those. So we listen to our Morse code. It's a little too far out to get our Morse code right now, so we're going to wait and make sure that it pops up right here, this correct identifier, ILHJ, or India Lima Hotel Juliet. From there, we're going to make sure our marker is on. This plane specifically has a marker mute button instead of a marker button. So, we want to make sure that our marker is not muted. However, we just listened from the ATIS, the inner marker and outer marker are out of service, so we're not going to hear it either way. Next, we're going to set our altimeter. We set that, we're talking to our controller here, and we're getting updated altimeter settings along the route. We set our heading bug right now. We're going to keep that in mind, and then we're going to set our compass right here. This is a magnetometer, so it doesn't need us to set the compass necessarily, but we can double check with our compass up top that that's correct, and it is. So now we go to our altitude brief. We're going to come in right here, and I always like pulling up the profile view just because it's nice and easy to do an altitude brief with the profile view here. 2,500 before egro. At egro, we can start our descent. If we're on the glide slope at egro, we should be at 2,475. From there, we can go all the way down to our ILS minimums, a DA of 1,071. And there's no in-op equipment here at the airport for approach lighting system or any other lights. So our minimums are RVR of 1800 or a half-mile visibility. We are good with that approach then. So next, that's our approach. Now, just in case our missed approach is climbed to 1500, then continue climbing right turn to 3000 on heading 279 and inbound on Springfield VOR, radial 037 to McLean intersection, DME 34.2 from PIA, and hold. Continue climbing, hold to 3000. So let's make that really simple. Go to 1500, turn right, go to 3000 on a heading of 279, and then hold at the McLean intersection. Easy peasy. Don't have to think about it from there. Now we need to build it into our into our flight plan. So I'm going to select approach, ILS 20. We're going to put egro in for now, even though we're expecting vectors, because I can't reactivate this approach from egro if they did give me egro, but I could activate vectors to final if they gave me vectors to final. Our barrel minimums were 1071, so we'll plug that in. That's a little off. 10,071 is a little bit higher. We're going to click load right here. It's going to say GPS guidance is for monitoring only, just like normal. We can go back to our flight plan. Make sure it loaded everything correctly. Egro, procedure turn, egro, runway 20, 1500, intercept, McLean, missed approach, hold point. And then a hold. Good. And if we activate vectors to final, it'll get rid of that procedure turn for us. So I can press and hold my clear button and get back to home. Zoom out a little bit. Looks like we are about 36 miles from Bloomington right now. And we're tracking on time. Looks like it's going to be a good time in there. So, now, I'm going to time-lapse this, and we're going to speed up. We're set up 36 miles out, ready to go for the approach. I'll time-lapse this, and we'll get you guys going in once we are closer. Okay, now we're back. We're getting switched over to the next frequency, 128.72. I'll check in and I'll let them know that we have... Oh, what was that information? Gotta double check.
6 Zulu, wind 190 at Niner, visibility 10. Back conditions ceiling 6,500 broken. Temperature 16, 2.13, altimeter 2988. Expected visual approach, runway 20. Note opens runway 29, ILS outer marker unserviceable. Runway 20, ILS inner marker and outer marker unserviceable. Advise on initial contact information, Zulu.
Zulu.
For 77 Delta Alpha, San Luis approach, have you out of clear. Descend and maintain 3000, fly heading 290, vectors visual approach, runway 20. 77 Delta Alpha, descend 3000, heading 290.
So we'll check in with Zulu. St. Louis approach, Cirrus 905 Bravo. We're at 4000 with Zulu, parking at Synergy Maintenance there in Bloomington.
November 95 Papa, San Luis approach, roger, have you out of clear, maintain 4000, fly heading 250, vectors visual approach 20.
Maintain 4000, fly heading 250 for 905 Papa. Okay, so he's sequencing us in behind everyone. Now, he says we're doing a visual approach for instruction's sake. I'm going to do the ILS from here, and we'll be good to go. And I want to make sure I'm sequencing heading bug. There he is. Perfect. A small tip I always like including is make sure that your map is as close as you need it to be. For here, if my map is way out here and I can see the entire state, this is not going to provide me any valuable information about the approach itself. I want valuable information about the approach. I want to be maybe about 7.5 miles here just enough where I can see the airport on my map. That's always what I'm doing. If it's a little too close, I'll zoom in one more until the airport is just barely on my map. If it's not on my map, that's all right. I just want it to be barely on my map so that I can get a small picture of what's going on at a minute level, just for extra security.
November 7 Delta Alpha, descend to maintain 2,500, the airport's 10 o'clock and 7 miles. 7 Delta Alpha, descend 2,500, we have the airport in sight. November 7 Delta Alpha, state visual approach runway 20, contact Bloomington Tower 124.6.
Now, that call that ATC just made reminds me that I need to have tower in backup.
95 Papa, descend to maintain 3,000.
3,000, 95. I'm going to start my descent down. Nice, easy 500 foot per minute descent. Down to 3,000. So what I have is I have my next frequency set up. That way I'm always ahead of the plane. That way, instead of having to dial then press a button when ATC says to switch over to tower, I can just press a button. Easy, easy peasy, being ahead of the aircraft. Now, since I'm close and I'm being vectored onto final here, I'm going to activate vectors to final, and my CDI is going to pop over to localizer. At this point, if I'm flying a 6-pack, I'd click my CDI input switch and I would switch it over to the localizer instead of being on the GPS here. Airport site for 905 Papa.
November 95 Papa, cleared visual approach runway 20.
Clear visual runway 20, 905 Papa. So now he's cleared me for the visual approach, which means I'm able to do whatever I need to do in order to get down to that airport, but I'm going to fly the exact ILS procedure that we have laid out in front of us. So I'm going to go down to 2,500 here. I'm going to start slowing down the aircraft and pull back to about 50% power-ish. Get my mixture rich, fuel pump on, landing light on, prepared for landing, fuel's on the proper tank.
November 95 Papa, contact Bloomington Tower 124.6.
Over to tower, have a good one, 905 Papa. Bloomington Tower, Sirius 905 Papa, on a visual runway 20.
Sirius 905 Papa, Bloomington Tower, report 2 mile final, runway 20.
Report 2 mile final, runway 20, 905 Papa. Okay, now we're intercepted. We're at 2,500. We're on our localizer. We got one dot on our ILS right about there. So I'm going to put my flaps in. I'm going to put my nose down a little bit. Slow myself down, make sure I'm not ballooning. We're going to have glide slope intercept here, so I'm going to pull my power back to around 30%. I'm going to maintain whatever I need to do in order to maintain straight in on the localizer and the glide slope. So I've got my 30% power. I'm coming in at about 105 knots. Looks good. Now I'm going to set my missed approach altitude here that we're going to climb to initially, which is that 1,500 we talked about earlier.
For the rest of this approach, the process that I'm going in is more of a hand flying technique. So this will be something that you guys drill down with your flight instructor. Make sure to be careful when you're flying and make small corrections.
Sirius 905 Papa, runway 20, clear to land.
20, clear to land. Was just about to call you 905 Papa. Alright, so we're clear to land. Landing light on to remind me I am clear to land. We've got 200 to go. there is minimums right about there.
Minimums.
So we'll put our last notch of flaps in. We'll turn our yaw dampener off. Pull our power back. Right on ref speed 185. Pull our power back to idle. Start our flare. Nice. Not too bad. Maintain center line.
Alright guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. Hope this helps. Leave a comment down below and rate my landing. Tell me how good or bad it was. Thanks. Bye.